Well, hello everyone, Texie88 here, and welcome to another review. And now, after having recently reviewed the Spectrum version of the first match day, now I'm taking a look at its sequel, which Ocean brought out in 1987, 3 years after the original version, after the original game came out. It also came out on the Amstrad CPC, Commodore 64, and MSX. And you may remember that a lot of people considered Match Day to be among the very best of the Spectrum's action football games. I say action as opposed to say football management games. But Match Day 2, will it improve on what made the original Match Day game so special when it first came out? Well, there's only one way to find that out, isn't there? And that's to give it a play. So we'll be using keys. And as with the first game, you got tons of different modes of play, including this new one, twin player match day, which allows two people to play on the same side, and one will be controlling one most likely to get the ball, and the other will be controlling one of the others, possibly the second closest, or something along those lines. And you got cup, league, and other options. Let's have a look at the other options. As before, you can change team names. You can even change tactics. Although it's not a case of formations like that. But remember, this is a game from 1987. And as in the previous game, you can change the colour scheme, although it's not quite as extensive as in the first game. For instance, they don't have different coloured socks the way they do in the first game. So, because it's a bit easier on the eyes, I think I'm going to select a black pitch. And as before, you can edit the team names. Lex 11. Okay, let's go back to the main menu. We'll just do a one player match. And you can give yourself a head start. Although that's pretty silly, so I don't quite know why it would allow you to have this many goals, but just to make it fair, I'm going to set it's not letting me go backwards, so I'll just set both of them to the same score. And you got this jaunty rendition of "Oh When the Saints Go Marching In." Now, in the first game, when you started to take control of a player, the colour of their socks changed to the colour of the rest of them. In this, however, you get this kick meter above your head. See, it's going alternating between 1, 2, and 3. That determines how hard you'll kick the ball when you actually come to kick it. When you come to press the kick button. And because the Spectrum 128K was out by this point, unlike when the first game came out, it's making use of the 128K Spectrum's superior sound capabilities, so you're getting some white noise from the crowd. I'm not quite sure what that is supposed to be. And as in the first game, if you've got the ball, you can't actually move as fast. It still has that problem of the computer opponent reading your movements a little bit too well. In fact, in this game, if you set it that way, you can actually have back heels in the game. And I've just scored. And notice how my team is celebrating, although I would have preferred if they celebrated the same way they did in the first game, because them just standing there and just putting their heads above their heads, not quite as visually interesting. I mean, the previous game had to cope with that in 48k. I mean, this got 128k, and that's actually less exciting. Oh, I've kicked it off. There's a tiny bit of colour clash at times, but then that's only to be expected. As in the first game, if you're not moving, then... Oh, I saved it then. And you can now do jumping headers in that, as you saw just then. So they've actually put quite a bit of extra bits and bobs into this game. And that came off my goalie, so it's a corner. Oh, I see that. Seems to be when you actually kick the ball. Oh. Now, as well as it being over your head, you can see in the top middle of the screen there's a bigger variation of that kick meter that's above your controlled player's head. So if you're finding that too small, you can always flick your eye from the main screen to that. Oh, you sod. They scored again. Oops. I was trying to say that second half. And that jaunty tune again. I think I'll skip that. And you might be wondering why that kick meter has a -1 setting as well as a 1, 2, and 3. Well, if you so wish, you can actually add a back heel to the meter, and when it cycles back to 1, it'll cycle to the back heel and then go back for 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, -1, and so forth. The only downside is you have to be a bit careful that it could potentially be very easy to have an open goal in front of you, and then you completely humiliate yourself by backheeling the ball when you've got the goal in front of you. It does happen. So as in the first game, it's smooth. Although I don't think I don't think the player characters are quite as well animated as they were in the first game, I don't think they're quite as well drawn either. I actually think I preferred the look of the players in the first game than I do in this. They look a bit too cartoony for me. I mean, and if there were another complaint, the overall pace of the game is a bit on the slow side. It's a shame it's not a smidgen faster, but from what I saw of the Commodore 64 and Amstrad versions of this, it seems like this version plays faster than those did. Perhaps not by a huge amount, but it definitely looked faster to me. Oh gosh. Oh damn! I got tackled. This actually has shoulder barges in it, although it doesn't look like anything happens. It does have them, and you've got more angles you can do throw-ins at. So I expect it's probably the same for other set-piece kicks. Come on! Oh, it kept, because of complications. It kept swapping between the two. Unlike the first game, though, you can actually switch to and press the kick button to switch to a different player to control. Oh, I didn't manage to jump in time. No diving headers in this, but you do have jumping headers. Ah, he hoofed it off. I think I'm going to get defeated again, but at least I managed to score a goal in this version compared to when I was reviewing the first game. Oh, that was lucky. It certainly seems to be a bit easier to get your goalie to save potential shots at goal in this compared to how it was in the first game. It's a little bit easier to read the angles and to distance away from you for some reason. Notice I was able to save more than a few of the attempts earlier. And another good thing, another thing that is really good about the instructions is that there was actually this graph for if you had two players playing both using keyboard, because some pairs of keys on the Spectrum's keyboard clash with one another, and sometimes, for instance, if a pair of selected keys clash, then there was a potential that you might, for example, accidentally cause your other player to kick the ball even when they didn't press kick themselves. And it actually had a chart to give you an idea of what keys both players could select without clash issues. And that is a really good. And it's really well explained, so that is also a good thing. So that's match day 2, but for the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. As with the original, it's if you like that, you'll probably enjoy match day 2, and it by and large plays the same except for the way the kicks are done because of that new kicking meter. Not 100% sure that it works quite as well as you might want it to, because you don't have any direct control over what kind of kick strength you do, because it cycles under its own steam. If you're desperate to do a harder kick right at that very moment and the meter's at 1, for instance, then that's a bit of a problem. So to that extent, while it's a useful addition to be able to do differing strength of kick, I don't think the method they pick quite works as well as they might have liked it to. And there's a problem that although it's got some additional things like jumping headers and shoulder barges, and in the case of the 128K Spectrum, the white noise from the crowd and certain other bits and bobs, and of course the ability to have 2-player team mode, so you can both be on the same team against the CPU, for instance. That's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, the fact that the game's overall pace is a bit too slow to be as enjoyable as it could have been is going to count against its final score. A Match Day 2 isn't a terrible game. Don't get me wrong. It's just, if it could have been just a fraction faster and a bit more thought put into the kicking meter, or replace it with something that works a bit better and you can do a hard kick, the hardest kind of kick possible as and when you need it, rather than it being forced upon you by an ever cycling kick meter. But apart from that, Match Day 2 is still a pretty enjoyable football game, especially for its time. So I'll give Match Day 2 on the Spectrum 8 out of 10. Hope you enjoyed that review. Catch you on another one soon. Texie88 out.